I think you two are the new Thelma and Louise.
Oh,
I say so myself.
Love that.
And I love that for us.
Oh, I love it. So I have to say, I feel like when I first started watching it, I can totally relate. I'm 31 this year, I turned 30 last year, and I felt like I could relate to Maggie.
Mm-hmm.
Turning 30, you're freaking out. What are you doing? Should I get married? Do I have a career? What am I doing? This is such a relatable show. Maggie suffers from bipolar. We're in a time now that world mental illness is so important. But you never hear of bipolar. You always hear about anxiety and depression in the shows. What was your take on your character having bipolar?
You know what? It was a real learning curve for me because, like you said, like depression and anxiety are so prevalent, and I feel like we have a conversation that revolves around mental health, not so much around mental illness. There's still so much stigma attached, and there's like all the "it's okay not to be okay," and there's like all these slogans that are good in a t-shirt, but then Camila really doesn't shy away. Camila Whitehill, who wrote the show, in her writing of going to the ugly, complicated places with it, and also like what it can mean to your relationships, and how like Maggie isn't actually capable at some points of being a good friend because she's so unwell. But it's wild that there's such a stigma around it because it's an illness in the same way any other illness is. There shouldn't be shame around it, but there really can be.
And Lydia, you play Eddie, which is her best friend and kind of like her hero, and she's like, I'm not going to change. She's like, I didn't think you were going to, and you kind of come and hold her together, and really, I think it's beautiful because you show that support that a lot of people that suffer with bipolar disease or other mental illnesses that suffer with, you're really there to support her and help her. And there's a point in the show that after she has her dinner party where you come back and you just see you guys just look at each other and Maggie knows it's time to make the call. What was it about you, the character Eddie, that attracted you to the role that you said you wanted to jump on?
Ooh, well, I believe, I'm going to go backwards and answer that.
Yes, of course.
The way Nicola played that scene, I think that was the moment I was like, that was a really, like, I felt really emotional in that scene because I really saw so many people, like, that go through that and that are in moments of crisis. And, like the final straw where you then are asking for help, and it's like a silent Maggie asking Eddie for help and saying, just thank you for being here. And Eddie's kind of holding her hands and saying, I got you. And I think that's just so, like, their friendship is that. It's like, I have you, I have your back no matter what, and I love you. And I need you, really. It's them looking at each other and saying, we need each other. And that can be healthy or unhealthy. In this moment, it's very healthy. It's very healthy support that they have. What attracted me to the role initially was I read the first 2 episodes and I absolutely loved it. I found it so funny and I found it just so real, and it felt like a London that I knew. The area, like, that Eddie's from and that she owns the pub in, is an area that I used to live a couple of years ago. And I also have just entered my 30s and turning 31 this year, and I felt the same kind of pressures that they felt. Like, I think we're all going through. I think it's a very different time to our parents' generation or the generation above us. Like, it's just, we are 30 and trying to figure out, like, what to prioritize. Should we have a family? Should we have a career? How much money do we need to be making? We have to choose. And there's this whole like idea of having the perfect life, and what is perfect for you may not be right for anyone else. And, like, there's just so many different options to choose, basically. And I found that the script so relatable in that way, and just so real and so current. And I'm at a point in my life where I was like, I've been these girls and I've lived through this and I want to play it. So it was really fun to do and just to be asked to be a part of.
From episode 1 to episode 3, it's completely different. Episode 1, you start with the scooter and coming into the pub. Like, I just bought the scooter here, let me give it away. And then to episode 3, so many different scenarios. I was rooting for Maggie to date the professor, but I was disappointed. What was your favorite scene to film?
My favorite scene to film, I think, was episode 3, the dinner party, because we shot, I think, in the second week of filming, and it was like just seeing the comedy ensemble together was just a joy. Everyone was so distinct and funny and brilliant. And there's an actress in there called Amalia Vitali, who I've known for like 12 years, and she is one of the funniest people on earth. She is just a comedy god in my eyes, and just her in that scene, and everybody, and like Maddie Grace Jepson and, you know, Rebecca Loman, everyone was just so good. And I just have really fond memories. And we were in this like apartment building in East London, and even like in the green room all together, we were just having such a nice time. And
it was so fun.
Yeah.
What would you want your message to be to women our age? Like I said, this is a show for us, for the millennials. What's a message for women that are probably going through this? They're turning 30, they're 31, and they're not where they thought they would be.
It's such a funny thing, because I think society makes you believe you should have this checklist of stuff you should have done. And it's interesting because millennials, I feel like we're so misunderstood, but it's a strange generation in that, like, you know, Gen X and the boomers are like, oh, they're useless, they don't want to do anything. And then Gen Z are like, oh, they're not cool. And we're in the middle going, hey, hang on. Like, we didn't do anything wrong here. But I think that the show captures that really well. And it's weird because it was not an aim on set to make a millennial show, but it's like, it's kind of amazing that that's been the response. But I think this generation, something Camila, who created the show, says really well, is like, we're a generation in which the chosen family that we make are so important to us in a way that maybe hasn't been the case for previous generations. Like, it is, like Eddie has this brilliant line of like, some women spend their 20s on ketamine, some women spend it starting a family, both are valid choices. And like, that flows through the show. Like, they're, you know,
I love that, by the way.
That line is so good.
So good.
You should make a shirt.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, Camila, you are the creator and the writer.
Yes.
And I know you went to school for acting, but you're a playwright. Maggie's a playwright.
I was a playwright.
You were.
I'm recovering.
Okay. So you were a playwright. I apologize.
No. I just don't want any theatres to get in touch.
So, Maggie's a playwright. It was this kind of like a bio.
No, not at all. I just didn't want to learn a new job.
Okay.
You know?
Her character being.
I don't want to learn a job I don't know. I don't want to learn what a doctor
Maggie's
does.
an engineer.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I'd be like flopping around trying to figure out what an engineer is. Do you know what I mean? I just,
It was easy.
It's my first show. There was a lot of things to think about and I was like, that's one less thing to think about. Do the job that I used to bartend a lot, and that's why Eddie's a bartender. So Godspeed.
Yeah. Right now we're in a world where mental awareness is important. You see a lot of people talk about depression, anxiety. This is the first show I personally have seen that talks about bipolar. Why did you choose Maggie to have bipolar?
It was always part of her character. The show's not, I mean, I keep sort of saying, the show's not about bipolar disorder to me, although obviously it kind of is. But what I mean by that is I wasn't trying to represent an entire illness. I wasn't trying to represent everyone with bipolar disorder. It's just that the setup for this show is that is part of Maggie, and it's baked into her, and it doesn't define her, but it defines some parts of her in some ways.
I think you did a great job. I love that you see Maggie super happy. Like in the beginning, the very first episode, she's in her scooter, and then you see her in a few episodes go really down. Rebecca, you're the director.
What? Oh, wait.
I wanted Sam Mendes.
Fuck, sorry.
He never emailed back. Damn.
You know, I told Nicola and Lydia that they were the Thelma and Louise, but I'm starting to think you two are the Thelma and Louise.
We could drive off together.
We could off a cliff. That'll be so fun. For a moment.
Yeah, till the water.
What was your I guess your inspiration, your angle to direct this, and like in which light you wanted the audience to see the characters?
I mean, first of all, the scripts are incredible. And so it's all very much on the page, all of this entire show. It's really, really remarkable. She's very talented. All right. But I think one of the most important things to me was really doing the best we could to get the audience to really feel what their relationship feels like, what Maggie is contending with, and what Eddie is contending with in her own. So it was really important to me to make that feel like something to the audience, that you can really, really kind of exist in this show with them instead of watching them. I mean, hopefully that comes through, but I think it's written that way, and we did our best to shoot it that way. That felt important to me, to really be able to exist with these people and understand what they were going through.
I noticed, and I don't know if this was on purpose, but I noticed on the happier, funny scenes, it was bright and full of color. And then in the more down, sad scenes, like I talked earlier about the scene where Eddie comes in after the dinner party and sees Maggie, and they look at each other, and Maggie kind of looks at her like, "Okay, I'm gonna make the call." Very dark, very gray.
We did a whole, that was a lot on purpose. I'm so glad you noticed, because of course Camila wrote into the end of the first episode the first color drain, and then Dan Stepper Clark and I went to our post house and created a LUT. I'm going to get into some nerdy things.
Here we go.
Here we go.
I'm ready for it.
It's basically you color time it before. I mean, you can remove it if you need to, but basically the idea is to have the image look like you want it to look in the camera. So when you're looking at the monitor, you can see what the tones are truly and everything. So we created 2 LUTs that were both the opposite, like polar opposites of each other. One for depression, one for mania, and at any given time, I made a very extremely nerdy. It was so nerdy. Spreadsheet that broke down every scene and talked about that LUT in percentages based on what scene we were in and what the cameras were doing. I also put Camila's music in each of those cells so people could listen to them and really get a sense of the tone of each thing. So that was what you were feeling, and I'm so grateful you felt it.
Oh yes. Where did you get the idea from to write this? Because it's, first of all, I'm 31, and this show is for me, for my generation, not for Gen Z or it's for us, the millennials. Where did you get this inspiration? Because there's not a show like this. I don't think there's ever been a show like this.
Thank you, unless you mean that in a bad way. Yes, so I'm 34. It was really important to me that the show is about 2 women in their 30s, because I felt there was a lot there to talk about and explore, and I am super interested. I really wanted to handle a friendship with the sort of detail and respect we usually save for romantic relationships on screen. Not always. There's been some incredible shows and films about friendship, obviously, but I wanted to handle it like that. I think there's just so much happens once you turn 30, because there no longer is a blanket expectation on, if you're living somewhere like London, if you're something like that, there's not a huge, you don't have to get married and have kids in the way that you were expected to. You can you have to sort of chart your own path in a way that you haven't always been able to do so. And I think because of that, for our generation, friendships are even more significant, because they really can be your family. Your emergency contact really can be your friend. It can be a bigger part of our lives, friendship. So and also the different stuff. You'll look at your friendship group. There'll be one person that's married with 3 kids. And then someone else that's just at a day rave on ketamine at the same time in the same group chat.
That line was brilliant.
I'm always talking about ketamine for some reason, but but it's so true, and it's so interesting, and it can be beautiful. Friendships can survive that without any issue, and some don't survive it. And I was really interested in that entire area. And I didn't want to hire a load of 22-year-old actors. I wanted people in their 30s.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, I
was really adamant about it.
I just turned 31. I turned 30 last year, and that's where I felt, where I was like, where am I going in life?
Yeah, that's fair. We all do.
It's a weird time.
Rebecca, how did you come up on the show? How did this
I just met her on the street. I was like, do you
yeah.
The opposite of that.
Do you by any chance?
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
can
you
I,
can speak.
can I slightly
was gonna
interject because
say,
she
yeah.
won't say this because she's too humble. But when but when the show was, before it was greenlit, but when I thought maybe it was going to be greenlit, they said, "Can you think of some directors?" And I wrote a sensible list of British directors, and then I wrote a fantasy list of American directors because I love American comedy so much. Those are some of my favorite shows. So I went on the IMDb pages of all my favorite American shows, and I looked for female directors, and I remember going on Ash's page. She directed so much stuff I loved, and I wrote her on this fantasy list. And that fantasy list I wrote on my phone a year before we met her. So I wrote this fantasy list. We wrote the show, and then when it came time to hire a director, I met all these British directors. I just didn't meet anyone that was right. And then I said, "Please, can I meet some American directors?" And they were like, "Oh my God," because
Damn
like
Americans.
not that at all. Cost, like just like practicality. But
Yeah, there's
luckily
some
my
logistics.
producers were like,
Probably.
"Let's give it a go." And so we sent this. I thought no one would reply. When I saw Ash's name in the schedule, this is so funny. I could not believe you had said. I was like, "She wants to meet." I was like, my mind was blown.
You manifested it.
I did though, and I
She
don't
did.
even really believe in that. So I'm so negative. But I was like, "Oh my God, I wrote that on a list a year ago. That is so insane." So then
I get an email. Yeah. I'm so grateful for her persistence, by the way, because legit, I would not be sitting here if it weren't for her being as
I'm
persistent
a big
as she
believer
is.
in
She's,
you might as well ask.
yeah, she's
Yeah.
very good at that, and it is it helped a great deal in many areas of getting Big Mood done. But yeah, I got this email, and it was sort of a little bit. I legitimately thought they sent it to the wrong person. I mean, or there was part of me that was like,
That's so funny.
because I'm reading the
You're like,
thread
yeah, right.
below it. I'm like reading all the, like you do when your agent sent you an email. You're like, what's all this about? And you like scroll down to the very bottom to figure out how the conversation started. But I was like, London, what? What's happening? Is this to the right person? And then I read it. I think the first two were the only ones that were sent, and I could not. They're so good. They were so good. And Nicola and Lydia, I was fans of already.
Mm-hmm.
So they were so good. I thought I mean, I just had to work on the show. I was so excited to meet about it. I was so excited for the prospect of working on something from the beginning to the end. And I felt like I could very clearly see it. I mean, it's
Bring
in
the
the
rest
writing
alive.
too, but it is absolutely in the writing. But I felt like I could see it, and I was like, I have to work on this show. It felt important to me in many
Mhm.
ways. It dealt with a bunch of stuff that I love. I love being a part of telling these stories, and I was so excited. I was very excited to meet on it, and somehow I
I don't want to
convinced them.
think about if you hadn't directed it. I don't
Me
like
neither.
to think about that. It was a bit like fate.
I
think.
really was. Yeah, it does feel like that. It feels very much like fate.
Yeah.
And I would have been so sad if I was at
I
home
don't
right
wanna
now.
think
Like
about
I would be like stalking Big Mood and like
it. No, it would be shit.
watching
It
the.
would
be shit.
I would be. I'm cheering for a season 2 for me too.
Oh my
Thank
gosh,
you.
me too.
Please watch Channel 4.
I want to ask. So you moved to UK for 8 months.
Yes,
How was it?
it was amazing.
She's born and bred California.
First, where? Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Where do you live originally?
Born and raised Los Angeles, California.
So Los
Yeah.
Angeles and UK.
Yeah.
What's the biggest difference?
The weather.
Yeah.
The weather, probably.
I was worried about her.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
exterior scenes.
She
was
kept
like,
going, I'm
"No."
sorry, it's so cold. But I don't know. I mean, I'd been to London twice before for maybe a total of 2 weeks, and I really loved it. I love the green parks. The parks are incrable.
Oh yes.
Mm.
I mean, it
Agreed.
helps to have so much royalty in your history that now just
Yeah, we
you
just stole
like,
it. Stuff
stole
so
it. Yeah.
rich.
I love the tube,
The tube is really good.
the people. I mean, this whole experience was really incredible. I mean,
think
this has
you have a British energy. I kept saying that. I was like, something about you is just really British, even though you're not. I think it's because you're self-deprecating, which is just
Probably.
us. Like
That's probably why.
Yeah, and so you just slotted right in, and we were like, yeah,
Okay,
great.
yeah.
What about you? What do you love about New York?
New York kind of reminds me of London.
I think so.
Because I was kind of mad that it was raining when I got here because I was like, I don't think that's fair because I've just been in rain. I get off at home. But it's got a really exciting energy about it. And I really like the food. And also, I think America has a really good breadth and width in its drinks menus. You guys do soft drinks so well. We don't. And coffee. We don't do it as well.
I know it's true.
What both of you can answer at the same time. What is the message as the creator and writer, as the director, that you want to send to the audience, to the viewers? Maybe a message to women who are in their 30s going through what Maggie and Eddie are going through.
Wow, that's such a specific situation.
Yeah.
Do they have a rat hotel? Okay. No, I know what you mean. I always say that do you have one?
I was trying to call down an answer that felt too long because I think I was about to go in the territory of what I hoped, but I mean, and maybe this sounds cheesy, but I really do have this feeling that this is this show in all of its layers. I feel like can really help somebody feel seen and can normalize what Maggie's going through, and that is so. I mean, I hope they laugh because it's hilarious. Mm-hmm. And then I hope they feel seen. I hope people feel seen, and I love the normalization of what Maggie is going through.
Yes, the show's been out for nearly a week in the UK, and I've already had some messages that have just made me go, "Well, this was worth it," just to make someone. Sorry, oh God, to make someone feel seen.
Aww.
Yeah.
Well, I loved it. I know I could relate, and it meant a lot to me. So you guys are doing great, and I'm praying and hoping for a season 2.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
God.